Hello and welcome. Who's ready to rock out?
Welcome to Camp Rock!
So Camp Rock 3 is now a thing. It exists. And it premiered on Disney Channel and Disney Plus, and I have a lot of thoughts about it.
Yes, it's been 18 years since the original first premiered, and the world is a lot different from when we last left Mitchie in Connect 3, but at least they're bringing back nostalgia with this new younger cast.
Now, just like any other fellow millennials, and also Gen Z, we grew up on these films. And as I've established before, I've been a Jonas Brothers fan since the beginning, since like 2007, so understandably not from the very, very beginning, It's About Time era, but I jumped on really soon after that, and thanks to Disney Channel, I was able to discover them. So I am still an OG to this day. So of course, I gotta talk about it.
Our main younger cast includes the new Trying to Be It Disney boy, Malika Barton, and new Disney It girl, Liamani Segura, who plays Sage. They are our Mitchie and Shane 2.0 basically. Hudson Stone plays Sage's younger brother, Desi, and according to IMDb, this is his first film credit, but he'll be a part of the new Mickey Mouse Club as well. We also have Lumi Pollock playing Rosie, and Casey Trotter playing Cliff, who both round out our final 5 competitors for the final jam. It's also an extremely terrifying thought that most of these kids weren't even alive when the first film premiered. I'll also highlight Ava Jean, who is basically Tess 2.0 as Madison. She doesn't really have a major role and instead just plays a very flat mean girl influencer with no motivation with doing so besides jealousy. I really felt like her character development was the flattest of all, and the only motivation I got was her wanting to just be the center of attention at all times. So her being eliminated from the competition was the cause and effect of her actions. Compared to Tess having much more nuanced reasoning for her actions, especially since it was very clear that she felt a lot of loneliness and abandonment from her mother, always being too busy for her. So with that comparison, there's not much more to talk about Madison's development, but I'm curious if they will expand her character further within the future. And again, this is very character-based, not actor-based. She did an amazing job with what she was given, but the writing and the story were lacking.
I knew that the Jonas Brothers weren't going to have too much involvement of it because they were going to pass it down to the new generation.
But I'm happy that they were in the film for more than 5 seconds. In fact, we have several returning adults, which is just a reminder of how old we all are now. Besides being executive producers, our brothers are back and still not getting along.
If I had a nickel for every time
The Jonas Brothers were in a Disney film where the entire subplot revolved around them not getting along.
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
This time, Kevin, aka Jason, is a single dad. It was never explained. With a baby he keeps losing track of. It's also funny that he always ends up being the dad character when literally all 3 of them are now fathers in real life. I don't know. Mitchie's mom also returns, Maria Canales Barrera, but she's now the camp director, which is an interesting career shift. We also have Sherry Cola, who's new to this series. She plays Lark, the brothers' tour manager. She's the one who basically took over Uncle Brown's role in the original. Of course, the secret is also out. Demi Lovato makes a cameo at the end of the film. I feel like this was such a worst-kept secret, especially since she did a surprise appearance last year. Oh, and then in the middle of the film, Milo Manheim makes a cameo. Why is he a part of this?
Anyways, let's get into the film. And yes, there will be spoilers. It's basically a chaotic remake of the original. I watched Camp Rock 3, gave myself some time to process my thoughts, and then the next day ended up going back and watching the original Camp Rock. And it's not nostalgia goggles, it's not rose-colored glasses. Camp Rock is so much better, and I understand that this is for a new generation, but oh my gosh, it was so rushed. There was basically no character development except for like their backstories being told. I'll explain further about that. The one thing I love about Camp Rock proper is how diegetic all the songs were in the first one. You're at a camp, it's very grounded, and you're seeing it through the teenager's eyes. Of course, at the time we were teenagers too watching it, but it's just very grounded and very realistic that yes, they have the connections to go to this camp. And yes, there's a really cool connection that they have a pop star attending and being an instructor. That could happen. There is no suspension of disbelief. It's very, very, very grounded, and all the songs are people actually standing up in front of the audience and performing, either by themselves in their cabin or literally within a class. It makes sense, it works really well, and yeah, it's a little bit cheesy. That was always there. It's a little bit cringy, sure, but it works. And that's why I like it better than High School Musical. But I have a whole bunch of issues with High School Musical that I've talked about so many times. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to hear more. This film was not bad. The characters, when they were allowed to give development for their characters, worked really well.
Sage, Desi, and Fletch are the main characters, while Rosie and Cliff are the supporting cast. They all do work well together and balance each other well, but we don't get to know too much about their backstories and why they're all there, besides them wanting to be rock stars. Well, mainly Sage and Rosie. Cliff just loves to drum, and I've seen a lot of comments saying that he's very neurodivergent coded, but I'm not sure if I agree with that take, and I'm also a part of the neurodivergent community. But that could just be because I felt like they were trying to make him the comic relief, and it felt flat for me. Rosie's character arc felt the strongest to me, especially since she followed the common character arc a lot of kids deal with, wanting to follow a different dream than what your parents expect. Yet again, I felt like we didn't get to know the characters as well as we got to know the original cast.
The first film was always Mitchie's film. It was always her protagonist story. We had the catalyst where it was her original world. Her hero's journey was going to this camp and being allowed to go to this camp as a catalyst. There was a setup and there was the journey and there was a reward at the end. And it really followed the hero's journey so well. If you know screenwriting, it followed that plot line to the T. You have your catalyst, you have your hero's journey, you have your all is lost moment. The pacing was very realistic and it moved really well. We had montages sure that showed the progression of the camp throughout the summer.
Yet here we begin the film, right at the start of the camp, and are introduced to Sage and Desi as brother and sister. And yet, is this their first time attending? Have they gone to Camp Rock before? I felt like these questions were never answered. Instead, we launch right into our first new song, and it's a banger to listen to, but also completely breaks the suspension of disbelief for me.
I want shot, this is the moment. One chance, I'm gonna show them. Dreams so close, I almost got it. 1 beat away, and I'm ready to rock it.
The entire camp follows Sage. Has she been here before? Is she friends with any of these people? How did you get them to agree to this? I know they did something similar in Camp Rock 2, but at least the characters were already established with each other by this point.
Mitchie wanted to be a pop star, but yet she was very shy and felt invisible back home, and so she didn't know how to cross over and to change her personality. She hid behind this facade of wanting to be popular, which again is very relatable. I understand that. I'm sure a lot of you guys too. And I'm not knocking it, but I have to compare these two films, especially because this is basically a remake of that film for the new generation. And when it comes to Sage, she seems perfect. Like, we don't really know any flaws of hers. She's a perfectionist. She's so focused on winning and being successful. And I feel like it's very reflective of what these teenagers have to go through today, which is really sad.
At least Desi talked about how he wanted to have a break and find new friends, which is the most realistic goal to have, even though his sister still dragged him into competing a little bit.
Of course, the catalyst is the Jonas Brothers need an opening act, so they go back to their roots and go to the camp to find their opening act. And I get the premise, and it could happen, but it's a lot of pressure. And it's actually funny because I saw it online after reading comments where people were like, hey, these parents signed up for a camp and for these kids to go to a camp. Nothing else. They never signed up to have them go on tour afterwards. And it was so fun seeing all these comments and seeing that people were questioning the logistics of this camp. And yes, in the original, it was a duet. So it was one song It wasn't a huge commitment, and it was still a great connection to kick off a career. And there was still a lot of pressure on the line, but a lot more realistic than, we're going to go on a 30-city tour and you're coming with us. I'm sure I'm not the only person to think the same thoughts, but it really felt like they were blending High School Musical and Camp Rock together to make this film.
Especially with that awful audition scene that was both pitch perfect and High School Musical coded.
Forget that fancy car.
I don't need to go that far.
I'm sure a lot of people had issues with Fletch's character, like I did, because of how lacking his character development was. He arrives to camp in a cop car, and I will give Disney credit that they actually gave him the storyline that he was a criminal in jail. Like, I was like, that's shocking for Disney, because Disney's always been super clean cut. Everyone's perfect. The only time they get in trouble is getting to detention or something very, very minuscule. But I was like, wow, they made him a criminal.
I felt like I had so many questions. How did he get to go to Camp Rock? We know that he's a musician and very talented, but not much else. For him being a lead actor, I felt like we didn't get to learn as much about him as we did Sage and Desi. But then we also didn't get to learn too much about them either. I also was really confused that the cop had no reaction to all the kids jumping on the cop car, as an unrelated side note.
Because the plot revolved around a competition, I really felt like it was a reality show instead of them actually enjoying summer at this camp. And of course, half of the songs were just copies of the original songs.
I really loved Connect 3's new song, but I'm also biased since I've been a Jonas Brothers fan for a long time. It will be really fun to see if they start performing this one live. As for the kids' songs, none of them really stood out to me besides One Beat Away. The others seemed to blend together, but at the same time, I can recognize that they also sounded very Lawrence the Band vibes to me as well. Obviously, these kids are all insanely talented and are triple threats in the making, and they gave it their all. But I don't know if the material was fulfilling enough for them to really showcase their skills.
When I was watching the final jam, I really felt like I was watching RuPaul's Drag Race finale instead, especially with how on the note all the lyrics were about the characters.
This is the section where some of the songs stood out more since they all got a spotlight for a few minutes. I loved Rosie's song and how she incorporated her cello, plus I'm biased since she is the most rock star of the group, and we all know how much I love my rocker/gothic characters.
I play it loud, I play it raw, I play it real, I play it flawed.
I'm dating myself with Desi's song, but the piano sample he used sounded exactly like I Want You, sung by Fat Joe and Thalia.
All my life getting by, not committal. Never like competing with everyone else.
And I'm biased towards that song, so go listen to that one again. It's really good. Of course, Sage brings everyone out to help her with her song, and we get the cheesy ending where the brothers can't pick one kid, so they pick everyone. It's very predictable, but that's how things work now.
After going back and watching Camp Rock, cell phones were honestly really prominent within that film, and I understand the difference because in 2008, we didn't have smartphones. Well, technically, iPhone was just invented, but kids didn't have smartphones. So I don't really understand why the no phones was such a huge, serious rule. I'm obviously aware of the difference. Now all the phones are smartphones, and it is a huge issue in reality. People don't communicate with each other in person anymore. Everyone finds their friends online. There are thousands of videos about it. We all know how much of an epidemic it is. Of course, within the first film, Mitchie was talking to everyone. Everyone was getting along at camp, and it was human nature. So I understand that they were commenting on reality right now, especially for all these kids that are living this way. We saw the natural development from Mitchie getting to know Tess and getting to know Caitlin and having these chances just because they were in proximity to each other, and it was a natural way to become friends. Instead, in this one, the only reason the five of them are friends is because they're competing with each other, and then all of a sudden are going to be in a band together.
And stuck on a bus together overnight. It felt forced and far from perfect or honestly realistic. And also, why were none of the classes and workshops held inside? Everything was outside, and it was so weird to me to notice.
Like I said, it's really not a bad film, especially for today's standards, but it still lacks so much originality, especially because more than half the film pulled from quotes and references from the original franchise. I can still go back and watch Camp Rock and enjoy it. And I know that I grew up with it, so I'm probably biased, but it stands alone as a cute, simple, grounded film. I don't know if I'm going to go back and rewatch this one. It could also be an older perspective, but I just feel like these kids don't get to be kids anymore. And even with this plot, they're all trying to find careers as teenagers.
Maybe Desi not so much, but then he also ends up getting roped into the competition too, as we've established. So everyone stays competitive to jumpstart a music career.
Because Disney seems to just continue to reboot everything and bank on nostalgia, we probably are going to get a fourth Camp Rock now with the new generation, especially with watching interviews from the Jonas Brothers. And even Demi has commented saying that she wanted to let it focus on the new generation. But it's so crazy that we are in a nostalgia bubble and that we're all old enough that they are now remaking the films from when we were in high school. I don't feel that old, but yet here we are. So like always, let me know what you thought, if you enjoyed it, or if you also felt it was lacking. And I'm sure I'll be back with more Jonas Brothers updates soon, especially since they've seriously returned back to working with Disney a lot and are now officially Disney legends and are running their podcast on Disney and probably coming out with more movies with Disney in the future. We have no idea, but they have released 2 now within the last year. The Christmas one and now Camp Rock 3. And I'm returning to my roots as a casual Jonas Brothers fangirl once again. Until then, as always, I hope you have a magical day and I will see you real soon.
Subscribe to PeaceLoveDisney. How's that? Sanjay from Hannah, Montana.